Hey, how's it going? So today, sorry about that, Jake. Right now, I am going to talk about, well, I'm going to talk about Hey Arnold, the cartoon that used to air on Nickelodeon. And I'm also going to talk about the animator who passed away recently named Tuck Tucker, who worked on Hey Arnold as well as SpongeBob SquarePants and I guess some other things that I don't know about because I really kind of aged out of that kind of thing. And really, Hey Arnold, like when it aired, I was pretty far beyond the age limit. Not age limit, but I guess suggested age range for viewers. And that's that's not unusual for me. I mean, I still like cartoons that are not meant, whoops, sorry about that, that are not meant for people my age specifically, but there's no law that says I can't watch them. So, I, first let me just say also, because this is old, spoilers are going to happen, as always, when I talk about a show. And I only talk about stuff that I like. Let's just get that out of the way. Um, Anything else? This is not intended for children, even though I'm talking about a children's show. Uh, I may talk about some things that are not strictly scientifically provable. And in the case of that, I'd just like to say that I'm just making this for the sake of entertaining you. It's not meant to, like, qualify as a class for your university certification, graduation, whatever it is. It's just, me having a little discussion. So, before I did this one here, before I did this video that I'm now making, the last one I made was actually about another cartoon called Steven Universe. And I talked about a lot of things in that video, but one thing I want to take from it and also apply it to what I'm talking about in this video is that I watched it and enjoyed it, still do, Steven Universe, because of its general theme of tolerance and kindness and sort of compassion. Well, not sort of compassion, absolutely compassion. And it has bothered me in the past. I don't know if I've said this here specifically, but it has bothered me in the past when I would see people, like, every time they say anything or they place it in their profile, somehow it's permanent to their site that be kind, be kind, be kind. Yes, of course, everyone, please be kind. I would think that's what we all want of ourselves and each other. I just get irritated that people feel the need to, like, tell people how they should behave, because that's not really our job. Our job is mainly to conduct ourselves in the right way. And what other people do is not as much of a concern, especially when, there's been nothing done to the person. Sorry, I feel this way, but sort of admonishing other people to be kind. Like, if they came up and, like, smacked your child on the head or something, I would feel less uncomfortable about someone telling someone else, be kind. But in the case where no one's specifically done anything to you, I feel like maybe, I don't know, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like to do it. I try and suggest things that I feel are good, but they work for me. These are things that work for me, and I am inviting you to share and enjoy with me my feeling about this. It is not me saying, hey, this is the law, this is how you must feel, because I think this way you should. It is not me saying that at all. I can't do it, so why should I expect other people to? So again, I'm just sharing with you my feelings on these subjects. But the cartoons, they give me a soft landing when you just can't take it anymore and you want something that's just easy to watch, like easy on the brain. You don't have to think too hard. It doesn't prod you and poke you in ways that make you uncomfortable. And it just takes you away from the adult world, or just the world that is the reality. I mean, it's all on a different level for all of the people that cover the planet, but we all have degrees of things that are wonderful and all the way down to things that they are not. And not wonderful can be very horrible. I don't want to go into details because I just don't. The idea is to get out of those sort of low-ended areas of thought. It just, you feel better, and that's kind of like what we should all be striving for, is to feel good, to feel better about things, and that radiates from people, and it doesn't require you to tell them anything. You just show them. So, the cartoons, that's where I go when I feel like I need to escape from all these adult concerns and arguments and hatefuls and things. Like, it just, after a while, it's enough. So, cartoons are my refuge. So, that is something that I get from Steven Universe, is, sort of little problems come up, and the way they work them out, I'm all about that in that show. And the way that they feel and that they share their feelings, I'm all about that, because I don't know, I find it helpful. I find it helpful to do myself, to like deal with my feelings, but sometimes you can't, like, that's something you have to do yourself, and if you get help from other people, that's wonderful. But there are things that we have to attend to ourselves when it comes to attending to ourselves. So, we look for crutches, and that's mine. Cartoons are. And so this time, as I said, Steven Universe. And I do feel like there's, very good takeaways to be had from these things as far as soothing ourselves. And when Hey Arnold came out, it was, the 90s. I believe it was 96 was a year. I think it had several seasons. So I'm going to say 96 was a year it was out. It was like producing episodes, and that's when it was new. That's when it was playing. That's when it aired. So there was stuff going on then, and I don't want to talk about any of that. But I will say that, not in detail, but I will say that it was not as bad as things are now. But it was like a step on the ladder. Well, you think you use a ladder to go up, but you also go down those too. And it's like, that's been like a downward going ladder. And boy, it's like we're like salmon fighting the tide to go upstream. So anyway, relatively, 96 was not as bad. 1996 was not as bad as 2020 was. I was like, I write out what I want to talk about so that I have not a script, but sort of a baseline. And I had written that Oh God, am I gonna forget? God, I always do that. Okay, so 96 wasn't as bad as 2020. But the thing about 2020 is, yes. Oh, that's right. The escalation. I had written that it was like a snowball, and the thing about the snowball starting, I mean, it didn't even start in 96. Let's say we put it back to Barry Goldwater, who, just let me have another quick aside about this. Barry Goldwater was, I believe, a Republican. I could be wrong about that. But he was kind of heinous and sort of, I believe he was racist. I just remember reading about him and thinking, like, now I think he was horrible then, but if he was now, he would probably be like an okay guy. But the thing is, if you have this sort of like dark core, like a rock in the middle of your snowball, say it's a radioactive or infectious rock in the middle of your snowball, and this thing has been rolling and escalating over time, so it's curing, basically, okay? The stinky little diseased rock at the center has cured and become more and more nasty and evil. And I think that's represented by the president we have had and what he does, and the people that follow him and back him up and don't get in the way of him doing the destructive things that he does. They're all part of that, like, dirty snowball. And there are people out there who think that the president we have right now, as of December 30th, 2020, they think that he's like a godsend and that he's a blessing and that he's here doing all this good work. And the thing is that we have free will. So yes, he is showing us lots of things. He's showing us, like, what's the dirt in the snowball and how the curing process of all the dirt has made, like, everyone around him sort of like, this is an okay way to be and do to the people we are supposed to be here representing, and we're really using them to get here and using them to send us money to do destructive things, but we're not really doing a whole lot to help their lives. Like, we all know about the issue right now about the $2,000 checks as opposed to $600 or nothing at all. So, I mean, in a way, we have to be grateful we did get something, because, you know, I'm grateful to get whatever's coming. There's things I need that I've needed for years, and I wasn't able to get them all with the last amount of money. So I will be very pleased to have it. But it's like getting a plate of food handed to you when you're really hungry, but you have to accept that somebody spat in it. And they spat in it right in front of your face before they hand it to you. You're like, here's your food. So, I mean, we're all experiencing some unfortunately negative things. And the thing about the president being a godsend, well, yes, he showed us all these things, but free will being what it is, he would really be godlike to me if he would have gotten in there and exposed all this stuff, and then instead of doing self-serving things like, oh my goodness, we can sell all this, you know, military hardware and weaponry to the Prince of Saudi Arabia, and be so excited about it that I couldn't help but think, dude, you sound like you're getting a slice of that. And the president being who he is, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case at all. In fact, it's coming out more and more that I guess I wasn't the only one with that suspicion, because there's all kinds of articles where it's coming out that the president and the people around him are taking advantage of the situation and just bilking people that believe in the path they're getting told. I don't know. It's a weird thing, and it makes me feel bad. So, cartoons. So, the reason why I really love Hey Arnold, and I was just thinking about it the day before the guy died, but that's been happening a lot too, but I'll talk about that on another occasion. The day before the guy died, I was thinking I loved Hey Arnold because it's my thing that we just hate each other and we hate what we don't know, but what we know is not as scary as what we tell ourselves. I mean, the house in Hey Arnold was, here's this kid and his guardians. His parents are wherever, just not there. I don't think they dwelt on it too much. Maybe that would have been like too negative a thing, but he did have his grandparents. A set of grandparents, because anyway, he had his grandparents. And he lived in this house that they had, and they rented rooms. And everybody in that house, like there was a couple, there was a bunch of single people, and there were all kinds of different personalities, and just, you know, it was a cartoon, so everything's exaggerated, but just odd and different people. And it's, to me, it was and is a reflection of society, because people are, if you don't know them, odd and different. People do things that we're not familiar with, that we don't do at home, or the people around us don't all do, you know, like a congregation of a certain church or religion. You get outside of your own little circle and things get unfamiliar, but it doesn't mean they may be odd and weird to you, but it doesn't mean they're bad. It's just different. And so in that house, there were all these different personalities, but they all contributed by, you know, paying their rent, obviously, but then they dined together. Sometimes they didn't have to. Some people kept to themselves, as would be the case in a real rooming house, which I've lived in, or like a place with roommates with people you know, like some people are contributors to the whole beyond like paying for their rent and bills, and other people just like do those things and then keep their own food, and and they keep that to themselves, and like, I gave what I'm gonna give and that's good enough. But you still are contributing by yourself being there, part of this group in whatever fashion you manage. And I always liked that. And this was around the time when this show came out. It was around the time that I was starting to do those things, like have my own, well, I had jobs forever, but like fully supporting myself and procuring a place to live. And oftentimes, because it was LA and it was expensive, and I know now it's insanely expensive, so why I don't live there anymore for one reason. But we banded together because a lot of us didn't have a lot of money, but some of us had just fine money, and they chose to be there because they wanted to be together with this group of people. And we were for months at a time at various different locations for months at a time, a collective. And we worked together to have a place to be and to eat and to drink our drink and do our drugs and smoke our cigarettes. Like, it was a collective communal effort. And it was far less chaotic than what went on in Hey Arnold. That was far less chaotic than what went on in reality in my life in those situations. But it's just a reflection. Hey Arnold is. But obviously it stuck with me. I'm over my 50s and a half, and it's still like these things still stick with me. And I have been saying over the past year that I first talking about police, because they have put themselves so separate from the rest of society that soon they're going to be attacking each other, like that kind of suspicion and hatred and deliberate separation from others. It ends up eating itself. It's like a disease, and diseases have a fatal end. Not most diseases, but a lot of diseases that hurt the body have a fatal end. Um, so I think about my childhood when I went to a school where it could have been a UN school. There were black and white people, there were Latino people, there were Korean people, some actually right off the boat, so to speak, that didn't even speak English yet. And people from South America, same thing. They came in and, you know, they know like everybody knows okay, you know, in the world. But when you're kids, you teach each other and you do that thing where you start off with no link language wise, but you make them and you find them. And my I'm sorry, my scalp is rippling right now. I don't know. It's just a feeling thing. Like what I'm saying feels right. It's like hitting all the notes for me, and that's what the scalp rippling is about. So, yeah. I think of how they've so alienated themselves from society, and they say, oh, you hate us, you hate us, you hate us. Well, you know, you're out there killing people, and it's finally become visible to people beyond the black people getting killed. Like, all of the other people are starting to see, like, wait a second, this, you know, this isn't right. And no one's saying they don't, that no one's saying other people don't get killed. But it makes people so angry that black people are saying, you know, after centuries of this stuff, can you please stop killing us? Like, really, police, can you please not make it your policy to decide that we have to die before what your profession prescribes, which is detain, investigate, trial, or hearing, maybe trial if indictment. Not, hi, I think you're doing something wrong. I'm not even going to determine whether what I think is real. I'm just going to decide that I am king, God, whatever, and kill you. So I need to go away from that. And then there's all these other parts of our society that have had the same thing done to them, you know. Like Native Americans have become like an afterthought, or indigenous. Like, I don't know what to call them anymore. I'm part of one. Not enough that you can see. So I guess that makes me illegitimate in some eyes, but it is what it is. I have lots of things about me you can't see. Mainly what people see is black. But when I was a kid and I went to the school with, as I said, like Asian kids, there was a German kid, there were Scandinavian kids, we had a Polish family that lived right next door. All, so many countries in South America. Nicaragua, we had Ecuador, El Salvador, Honduras, Mexico, you know, there's a lot of countries down there. Those are the ones that I know for sure that I went to school with. And we even had like a black kid. He was younger than me, but he lived across the street, and he had a single mom and she needed a babysitter. And I first was just playing with him, you know. But I was like enough older than him, and then there were my grown-ups right across the street there, so she felt safe leaving him with me, and then if anything bad happened, we could just go to my place. So, and it was only for like 4 hours a day or something after school. Excuse me. But that kid was black, and he was from St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. So, I mean, it was really, and then I lived like Koreatown was right there, or what is now, I don't know what you call it now, but Chinatown was not far away. Koreatown was basically in my neighborhood. There was like a little teeny Japanese cluster. It was a very diverse upbringing, and it, you know, by like doing things like going to the homes and having sleepovers with these kids, or just spending time with them after school and going to their homes or on the weekends. And you they had like the parent nights where they could come in, and once a month we did like potluck, and everybody brought in something that they made at home, and you could ask about things you didn't know in these situations, or it was comfortable and it was accessible and acceptable, and things just weren't so alien seeming and contentious. And I always felt like that's what Hey Arnold kind of represented. I mean, outside of the house, he had kind of the same thing, like all different kinds of people from all over, the children of people from all over, and everybody just kind of like got to know each other and got to know the ways of one another. And I think that's something that I started off saying that maybe the police needed to do that. Like, they needed to go to empathy camp. But maybe, and I thought, like, maybe that should start for, like, everybody at a much earlier age, so that we don't have these divisions that we feel like we should kill the other person over because we don't know what's going on and we don't understand them. And we get these kooky ideas like the religion that the other person has outweighs like the reality of the person. Like, okay, they're a Muslim, but you don't know if they practice, you don't know if they drink, smoke, or do any of the things that their religion supposedly. I don't know what the Quran says precisely. That's why I say supposedly. I'm not saying it doesn't say that. I'm saying that I don't know. I have heard that drinking they don't do. I know that pork is not a thing. But I also know plenty of them that do all of those things they're not supposed to do. Just like Catholics, just like Jews. So that's what we have in common. Like, not like Sharia law. When W was president, that was like the biggest horror in the world. But to me, it looked like we were doing a Christian version of it here with the, canceling of other religion people. And it's so funny, like, we just recycle crap and we don't even know that it's crap. And sometimes, like, we catch on. But, okay, now I'm getting further away from the subject. I just think that empathy education for one another probably should begin earlier. Like, we need to spend less time like just clustered up with our families and more time just blending and mixing amongst each other. Maybe not physically at the moment because of the virus concerns, but at some point we're going to be able to go out and socialize in a way closer than when we used to. And that's kind of, I know it seems like it's away from the whole talking about Hey Arnold, but that's what got me here to talk about it. That's kind of what got me here in front of the phone talking to you right now. I have other shows that I have in mind that I want to do, but everything has been so heavy feeling, and the other stuff I want to cover will address like pretty heavy and negative things, and I just don't feel the need to add to that right now. Like, there's enough confusion and unhappiness and people are really struggling right now, so I don't want to stir the pot and add in some like nasty blackness. So that, like I said, Hey Arnold was always like a relaxing thing to go watch and spend time on. The soundtrack was like really lo-fi kind of jazz, and it had like earmarks of the height of the hip-hop era at the beginning, and it's just sort of like a nostalgic kind of treat in a way. And not that I was ever a huge hip-hop person, but there were moments, as there are now, where there's a song that will even catch my attention, a pop hit. But, nostalgic things are comforting. And if you're lucky, childhood things are comforting. And this is not a childhood stuff specific to me. The things that I personally had in common with Arnold were I was a single child, but I did have my parent who I lived with. My other thing is that instead of living in the house with all these different people, well, that's something like I said, I did that later or at the time as an adult. But as a child, I had family that I would see. Like, I do have a father. He's deceased now, but he had remarried when I was very young. So I did have step siblings, and I do have. Well, they're still alive. I do have a half brother. He's around, but I don't see them much. We don't communicate much. We really never did, and it's fine. I mean, it's the way things were. The people I did have more contact with were like my cousins that lived at the house that I talked about, where I lived across the street from the kid that I babysat. Uh, I have a pair of maternal cousins. One lived there, the son, and then his sister lived with their mother. But I saw them, her and her mom, she and that cousin's mom, fairly frequently. His father also remarried, and so he lived with the father, the new wife, and his now stepbrother. So, there were kids in my life, and that house had it was a fourplex as opposed to a duplex. So, four homes of family members, and including mine. Sort of similar to the Hey Arnold situation. And then I had my paternal cousins, and I spent the most time with a boy and a girl for a long time, and then later there came another boy, and I spent most of my holidays with them because my mom didn't do the socializing with the family thing. And even when I spent holidays at home, we didn't do much of anything. There was no big to do. You know, she didn't cook. If I wanted to eat holiday food, I either had to make it or go to my aunt's house, and that's what I did. Because as a kid, I wanted that whole holiday experience. And it's kind of weird having Christmases at the home where it's not yours. You learn to not to expect. You learn not to expect to get presents there, is what I'm saying. So if that's like your whole deal with the Christmas holiday experience, and you're in my family, don't go to your cousin's house, even if they know you're coming. Don't look for a gift because they're not thinking of you. That was my experience. And that was hard when I was a kid. But, what is it anyway? What is the thing? The more valuable experience, the thing that kept me coming back year after year, was getting to see my other relatives, getting to just hang out and with the kids and stuff. So, there are things of value to be gained from any experience, really. And I guess that's really all that I wanted to say. I know I've just been feeling like really embattled on behalf of like everybody else. Like I have nothing to complain about, honestly. I don't have a whole lot of money. There are things that I want, but I have what I need, I really do. And that's something to be very grateful for, because it could all go in a moment. That has happened to me too. And that's not an experience I would care to repeat, especially now. I have a lot of things going on that would make that really hard. But if that happens, that's what happens, because I guess it's what I signed up for. Anyway, I just wanted to share how I try to kind of have a better experience when things don't feel so great. And the cool, quiet, jazzy little world of a strange world of an introspective little kid, creative kid, was appealing to me even as an older kid, even as an adult. It's just like a place where you can just like shrug off worry, just like, you know, float in a pool of content. All right. If you made it to the end, thank you and good night.